Greetings everyone, rudyxx here to talk today about the game Blade and Soul. I played this game when it originally came out for North American audiences back in 2016. I leveled a character to what was at that time a max level of 45, and I had a blast playing it. It was a fantastic game and everything, but shortly after they raised the level cap to 50, I got distracted with another game, and so I never got around to reaching the new level cap. For MMO Quest, I decided I wanted to go ahead and get around to getting to max level again in this game. Amazingly enough, though, literally the week I decided to do so, they raised the level cap to 55, and I didn't actually even find out until halfway through my leveling trek. No big deal though, as I continue to push forward anyways. So rather than finishing things out with my original character, I decided I wanted to try out a new class and refresh myself with the story since it had been quite some time since I had played the game. I eventually settled on Summoner, specifically because Summoner is the laziest class to play in terms of the leveling process, and I was well aware of this going into it. Now I love a challenge every now and then, but I kind of didn't really want to put a whole lot of effort into getting through everything since I'd basically done it all once before. That's not to say that Summoner was a boring class, but it definitely made everything incredibly easy, as I didn't particularly have to worry about getting hit or relying on counters as much as some of the other classes. So in any case, one of the main aspects of Blade and Soul that I enjoy is the combat system. And despite going for a very lazy class, the combat was still fairly fun. It's very similar to games like Revelation Online or Terra, in that it's very action-based, and you typically have to put in actual effort to move out of enemy attacks, and really pay attention to the animations of everything so you can react accordingly, as opposed to just relying on stat rolls as to whether or not your attacks may hit or miss. Blade and Soul gives you a bit of a homing area though, so that it's not quite as intense as a game like Terra, but it still requires you to at least make some effort in where you point your camera so that you're actually hitting your target instead of the ground or the sky or whatever. It was definitely somewhat trivialized as a summoner though, as the homing area is pretty gigantic, and you actually can't even attack empty space at all in this game, as opposed to some other MMORPGs I've played. I still had a pretty fun time with it despite it being a bit lackluster, as I mentioned before. I actually knew going into this that the Summoner class is considered pretty easy mode for the leveling process. Another neat thing about Blade and Soul is that it's one of the most story-intensive MMORPGs I've ever played. I could hold a pretty good argument that it might actually be more story-intensive than a game like Final Fantasy XIV, as I didn't have to deviate from doing any of the main story at all in order to progress. And in fact, the way the story is presented is incredibly fantastic. With cutscenes left and right, and fully voiced out NPC interactions, it's always been really amazing to me just how much effort was put into this game for the North American market. There's maybe only a handful of NPC lines that aren't voice acted, so it really added a bit of pizzazz to the game as I made my way from one quest to the next. Unfortunately though, because of how the game progresses, it plays entirely too much like a single-player adventure. I saw quite a number of people along in my journey, but there was never any reason to interact with any of them at all. I did a total of 2 dungeons in my journey. The first one was apparently an accident, as it was for an event meant for level 50 to 55 players, and so I didn't really get much out of it at all, especially considering the fact that I was level 16 when I went in there. The second one that I did simply to show someone the dungeon queue interface, and I ended up in a group with literally just my level 25 self and a level 55 player that was farming for some vanity gear. Other than that, I really had no outside player interaction. There's really no reason to run dungeons anymore, since the experience points you gain from combat are so abysmally small that I actually thought for most of my journey that regular enemies didn't actually award experience points. Originally, the game had an equipment upgrade system that required specific weapons needed from certain dungeons, but since they did away with all that, the only people that run low-level dungeons anymore are players searching for vanity-related gear. So if you're looking for an MMORPG with little to no player interaction until max level, or just a free single-player adventure with a fantastic story, then this game is pretty amazing. As I mentioned before, the story is pretty fantastic. It starts out pretty generic, but eventually picks up and takes you on a wild roller coaster as you travel along. It does suffer from one major problem though, one that in fact cut my adventure short of the new level cap of 55. So this game suffers from what I like to refer to as the One Piece syndrome. There's an anime known as One Piece that is about this pirate that goes out searching for what is known as the greatest treasure of all time, the One Piece. Now, this is a fantastic show, but at this point it's got over 800 episodes, and they really needed to find the One Piece like 700 episodes ago. It's great and all, but eventually reached a point where I just stopped caring anymore. There's all kinds of adventure that goes along with them trying to find the One Piece, but since their goal never really changes, it quickly becomes stale. Blade and Soul suffers from this exact same thing. The entire game you spend chasing after one goal, and it just drags on for what feels like forever. I eventually heard they were up to Act 8 in the story, and after hitting level 50, I was only partially into Act 4. At this point, I played out about half of Act 4 before I was just like, okay, I honestly stopped caring about saving the world a while ago, and I think I'm done. At level 50, your levels become capped, and you gain the ability to earn what's called Hongmoon levels until eventually you reach a point in the story where you unlock the ability to level again. But considering I wasn't even really halfway through the story, I didn't really care about saving the world anymore. I kind of just gave up there. At some point, I started talking about how I just wanted to live out a normal life as a farmer in one of the towns I visited instead of dealing with the day-to-day pressure of being the only person capable of saving everyone. It just really got to me after constantly failing over and over again and being revived over and over again, and basically the exact same thing kind of happening over and over again, just more intense than the last time. It wasn't so much a story of persistence or becoming stronger as my character went through various changes over the course of the game. It just became the story about doing everything to pursue a goal that just kept ending in failure, that I felt like it was never actually going to happen. Now, I know exactly how much I have left before the pace changes a bit since I went and read the wiki page, but even so, it was really too much for me at this point. I might eventually go out and finish up the story when I feel like it since the game is free to play, but for now I reached my original goal of hitting level 50. I know that there are people out there that really enjoy this sort of story because I know there are people that still keep up with the show One Piece. For me, however, I'm ending my journey to become a farmer and live out that normal life where the worst thing that happens is the hogs getting loose. Thanks everyone for watching. If you'd like to follow along in my journey with MMO Quest, feel free to subscribe to the channel. You'll also find that I stream some of my adventures live on my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/rudyxx. And as always, happy gaming everyone!